Hey, my name's Tony Draper and I'm a recording and mixing engineer, and I'm here with Neve today, welcoming them into my little home recording and mixing setup, and we're going to track some stuff. We're going to mix some stuff with some of my favourite Neve outboard. So I started as a musician, as a piano player originally, and then later a guitarist. And I realized that, I don't really want to be a performer. I was more interested in working on other people's music from a technological standpoint, being involved in music, being creative, but I loved that kind of marriage of the technology and the music together. And so I went to school for it. I did a BTEC diploma, and then I did a degree at LIPA. And I've since been working professionally as a recording and mixing engineer, predominantly mixing now. Started out in-house at a studio called Par Street Studios, which sadly is no longer with us, but was in the centre of Liverpool, and I worked there for around 11 years or so. And they had a lovely Neve VR. And so, my first real introduction to Neve was working on that console, and I got to work on it, a number of times a week for a decade, pretty much. Got to know the VR very, very well, and the sound of it and how kind of classic it sounded, and then got involved with another studio that had an 88R, installed an 88R and was there for the install process, and then learnt that console and went up to the factory and met Robin and everybody at Neve and learned how to use those consoles, and then got intimately familiar with the 88R console, which is just, if you know anything about Neve, it's as good as it gets. We used to use the VR quite a lot for its preamps, but then the 88R was a massive step up in clarity and kind of bandwidth and all of those sorts of things. It's just a gorgeous sounding preamp. So that's why it's really exciting that, knowing the 88R console intimately, that you can now, with the 88M in particular, you can take those same quality preamps that we're all blown away with in the console, the big, huge format analog console, and take it home with you, or out on the road, or to somebody's bedroom, or wherever, or a domestic setting like this, and get the same quality of sound, that same input stage, the preamp stage, which is so crucial. You've got it, in a super affordable little box that you can take around with you. It's a phenomenal thing. So first thing to do is we're going to track some piano. We're going to go downstairs. I've got a little Yamaha piano downstairs. I've got my 88M, and we're going to go down and record some piano. So let's go and do that. So today then, recording this lovely Yamaha U1 that I've got here. 88M, obviously. I've got a pair of KM184 Neumann pencil condensers. They're great for this kind of instrument where sometimes pianos can be a little bit dull sounding. You always want to brighten them up, so some nice bright microphones work really well. And obviously the 88M just is wide open at the top end, so it captures all of that really, really nicely. I'm actually running it at 96K, so a little bit above your kind of standard 44.1 and 48, because I want that pristine capture. And I've kind of set them up, it's not quite ORTF, if you know much about stereo mic configurations. It's not quite ORTF, but it more or less is. So it's kind of a near coincident pair of KM184s. Going straight into the front with some phantom power on, and I'm just listening straight back from the DAW. So latency is low enough that you can actually just listen straight through Pro Tools and back and not really have to worry about latency in the headphones. So that's the setup, and I'm using Pro Tools here. It's just plugged in via USB, and away we go. think the preamps are really, really important for that initial capture, right? What you do afterwards is kind of a movable feast. But if you don't capture something well in the first place, if it doesn't enter the computer or whatever your recording medium is in a robust way that sounds precise, that has a nice wide frequency range, low noise and all of that sort of stuff, then whatever you do afterwards is not really going to help. It's not going to improve the sound quality. So that initial capture, the preamp that you plug the microphones into, is absolutely crucial. And that's one of the reasons why the 88M is so good, because it's got the 88R mic pre's in it from the console, and it really does have the same kind of sound, you know, that wide open, airy, classic Neve sound. There's a real through line from the console all the way through the 500 series and down to something like this, which is really in reach for a home engineer, producer, or, you know, me doing stuff like this at home. And so for this kind of setup where I'm recording some piano, I want a really pristine sound. I want it to be really precise, really clear, and that's what the 88 does really well. That's 88 all day long. Whereas, you know, something like Tone 73 or something, as we know, it's got that sort of classic, slightly harmonically enriched sound, a little bit more coloured sounding, thick, gorgeous overtones and things. The 88R is more pristine than that. There are so many two-channel interfaces, USB interfaces out there, but the reason I use the 88M is not just the preamps, but the conversion quality. People don't talk about Neve converters enough, I think, in my opinion. They are incredibly good, really, really strong, really kind of, again, natural sounding. It seems to me that anything I track through Neve conversion and through this box, whatever you then want to do to it later, whether you want to distort it or EQ it or compress it or whatever it is, or any combination of those things, it'll take it really well and it'll do it really, really naturally. And I think some other lesser converters, they sound great off the bat, but then when you actually try and do things to them later on, they fall apart a little bit, and they just don't quite sound as natural anymore, or there's a slight sort of two-dimensional, slightly flat quality to them. This is 3D all day long. The depth is absolutely amazing on them. So I'll always choose these first. And I use this box when I go out recording shows, which I do quite often, 3 or 4 times a year. I took it to the Liverpool Philharmonic and recorded their Steinway Model D with this exact box, because the preamps and the conversion in tandem give you such a deep soundstage that, you know, I don't know what else you want. And then, you know, the headphone amp on it is lovely as well. It's incredibly precise. So the ability to monitor directly from the preamps rather than, you know, through your DAW or a blend of those things, it just means that it's really flexible, and what you hear, there's no surprises later on. So when you bring it back home and stick it through your nice big speakers or whatever, or you come to mix it later on, there's no surprises. Everything that you hear is exactly what came through the headphones on the day. You do get what you pay for, I think. You know, yeah, it's not the cheapest of two-channel interfaces around, but you can hear where the money goes the moment you use it. You know, the quality of the conversion, the quality of the preamps, quality of the headphone amplifier, and the fact that it's bus powered as well. It can do all of that without having to be plugged into the mains. Makes it really, really practical. So absolutely it's worth every penny. So piano's done, sounding really, really good. Really, really happy with that. So I think we're sort of moving into final overdubs bits now. Probably do a little bit of guitar overdub maybe, or some percussion, something like that on top of the pre-built track that I'd already done. And for that, I'm going to use my 1073 SPX-D down here. It's already plumbed in, it's already ready to go. As always, it's always there. So I've got a mic here and we'll just plug into it, maybe use the DI on it and see how that sounds. Go from there. All right, so we've just been using the 1073 SPX-D there to do those overdubs, as you saw, and I've had it a little while now, and it's kind of the sort of centerpiece of this mixing setup here that I've got, because first of all, it's just great to have a preamp that just sits there, is always ready to go. I've got a microphone plugged into it, so if the artist comes over and they want to do a bit of an overdub, or I want to add something, you know, it's a case of swing the mic in, knock phantom power on, and away we go. It's already going into the computer. But also, the quality of conversion on it is unreal. It's absolutely fantastic. I've got plenty of choices for conversion in here. I'm spoiled for choice, but when the 1073 SPX-D arrived and I plugged it in, I thought I'll just go back and forth, and I expected it to be very good. You know, Neve conversion is I think underrated, really underrated. But I didn't expect it to be the very best that I've actually got. And so now that is my main mix conversion. So everything I mix in here, I don't know how many hundreds of tracks a year I mix in here, but all of it is monitored through the SPX-D. That's my final output stage to listen to. So it's kind of just the centerpiece really, and you know, all the other converters are clocked from it even. So I'm using the clocking in there as well. It's kind of just the main hub of the studio. That's what I'm listening through all the time. A mixing process for me is a combination of you know, plugins and outboard, and obviously I don't have a console in here, so I'm working hybrid, and so all of this outboard is kind of plumbed permanently into various converter channels, and it gives me the best of both worlds. You know, I've got Neve front end, Neve monitoring, and then I can process whatever I want with outboard, or a combination of that with plugins. And so one of the real strengths of the 1073 SPX-D is that you've got that digital input. So if at any point somebody sends me something and it's, you know, the vocal needs a bit of help or something, this is a really common thing, is that the vocal sounds nice, great performance, but from a sonic standpoint it needs a little bit of help. Then we can just flow straight back out the computer into the Neve, through its conversion, through its line amp and its EQ, do a little bit of shaping, through its transformer-y goodness, and then straight back into the computer again. So that's something I do a lot of, is processing stuff through the 1073 to make use of the EQ and the sort of the transformer stage in it, for a little bit of coloration, a little bit of kind of analogness, for want of a better word, and straight back into the computer. So that's something I do a lot. Obviously, I've been able to control all of the tracking on this, so I've tried to record the sounds that I know are going to work. So hopefully there won't be massive amounts of processing needed, but it'll be a combination of hardware and software as usual. You know, I think that piano is probably going to need a little compressing. It's just very raw at the moment. It's just mics into the interface and a little EQ. So it's probably going to need some compression. So Neve have been kind enough to actually bring along an 88C, which I've not used before, not plugged it in before. Very excited to have a play with this, but I'm kind of hoping that's going to be my piano compression for the mix. And then it's going to be just tying things together, a little bit of effects to push things back and deal with the depth, and hopefully it'll be more or less there after that. All right, so 88C plugged in, and I'm going to try it on the piano here, because I think this is going to be, I'm hoping this is going to be the main piano compression here. So let's see what this does. So just bypassing first of all, just to make sure we're gain matching in to out. All right. Wow, you can get away with quite a lot of gain reduction on here without it sounding too squashed. But I think we want something a little bit more subtle for this. Let's maybe link the two sides together. Lower the ratio a little bit. Just again, trying to gain match roughly, so I'm not tricking myself by just making it louder. What does it sound like if I don't use fast attack? Yeah, cool too, but I think I prefer the fast attack. I think I like the way it grabs it. it's exactly what I hoped, which is this is definitely doing really, really nice things on the piano. I've got it set quite subtle, so it's only 1.5 to 1, but the threshold's quite low, so it's grabbing quite a lot of the signal, but just squeezing it very gently, so it's not overtly squashed. I did try at some higher gain reduction settings, that sounded really good too. But I'm loving just the subtlety of this. It's doing maybe up to 2 or 3 dB of gain reduction on the loudest bits, but it's just bringing the loudest bits down a little bit, quietest bits up a little bit, and adding a little density to the sound, really pinning it to the front of the mix. I'm loving that, love what that sounds like. There's this real kind of lushness to stuff that comes through Neve. You kind of know it. There's a quality to it that just sits. It just feels big and weighty and clear. Which they sound like they're kind of opposites. How can it be weighty and also be clear? But it is. There's a clarity to it, but it just sits. It sounds classic. You just kind of, you know that it's quality when you plug into it.
you.